Okay, play it forward with Nataša Prosenc Stearns. And she is a filmmaker and visual artist. Her film is Živa, The Death of the Goddess. Nataša, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Would you like to introduce yourself or the film in any way prior to beginning?
You know what? Let's just jump into it.
Yeah, I like that.
Because the film has so much to do with where I'm from and with me, so it's going to be all there.
We'll cover it. All right,
Yeah.
cool. Nataša, the film is really visually creative. You're a visual artist, so it's uniquely, abstract. And it's a storyline, I think, from, where Slovenia?
That's right, yes.
Yeah. And it's actually based on history.
Correct.
And it was the Christianization of the country. And that happened in what century? Seventh century.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So it's really interesting, this abstract representation of this divine feminine that goes through this metamorphosis based on the violence of culture. And the film really talks about war and divinity and ruling civilizations through religion. So maybe the storyline, would be a good setup for you to come into and help me kind of set that up first.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, this is true. The film the whole idea got through a very interesting trajectory for me because it was a commission of a museum in Slovenia. And this poem that the project is based on, it's called Baptism on the Savica. Savica, it's a river in Slovenia. And it's an epic that is written in 1863 by a Slovenian poet, France Prešern, who is our biggest poet, our Shakespeare, if you will. And, the poem has a very strong identity-forming component for Slovenia. So let me back up a little bit. It's Slovenia, it's part of former Yugoslavia, and it's between Italy, Austria, Croatia, and Hungary. It's a very small country, and it's always been under the rule of somebody else until the separation from Yugoslavia. So that identity issue, it's really strong, right? And that's why this poem, it's very important, and it was kind of a touchy subject for me when I started, when I tried to relate to it and try to figure out how I'm going to make this film video piece that is based on it, because the poem is very violent. And it's very graphic in terms of blood and killing. And, and I was thinking more that I was rereading it. I was thinking that would be a great project for a superhero movie, for a blockbuster movie. My projects are much more intimate, much more, kind of subtle, if you will. So then I found this character, or not a character, but a goddess in the poem. And this is a goddess Živa. She doesn't have a really big role in the poem, but I figure out the way how to tell this whole story through her character and through her relationship to nature and historic events. And, the name Živa in Slovenian means alive, or life, all this, everything that has to do with life. And it's a goddess of love, prosperity, and it's kind of a fun goddess. It's not somebody you're afraid of, or she's not going to punish you. It's all kind of embracing, and in descriptions they are, they say that the guys were in love with her. It was very lively, nature connected kind of a divinity, So I set up to do this, the whole project through her through the idea of Živa. And of course, there was some resistance on the on the side of museum, but we found a common language. So now I'm pretty happy that that was possible, because for me it was also very important to say that, you know, one side, pagan side against Christian side, and all these battles, but deep down the ideas aren't that different. But there's just this power struggle, and it's in a way senseless. So the project was also about, you know, just plain and simple, the senselessness of wars.
Yeah. You know, the first question to play it forward is really, you said in the word relate, and that's what I really like to know is, how did I understand like the background of, you know, the commission and the idea, but how did the idea and the germinal seed in you, where did that come from? Where did the inspiration come from regarding, it sounds like Živa, and making her the central figure?
Right. I think what attracted me while I was trying to, you know, figure out how I'm going to do this is that really strong impact of a feminine principle, which I'm very interested in general, also in other projects, not only because I'm a woman and a woman artist, woman filmmaker, but because I feel that feminine principle, which is self as being, as opposed to masculine principle, which is self as doing, I think feminine principle is being progressively neglected in our society, and it's not talking men, women, but feminine principle, that it's in all of us, right? So because of the way our civilization, I know these are kind of lofty words, but that I'm trying to express what actually what actually drives me. It's where we're going. It's all about competition, goal-oriented, achievement, you know, capitalist agenda of being on top, being the winner, right? As opposed to more feminine principle, which is not just intuition and, you know, floating around, not at all, but more about being in yourself and trying to take time to see who you are, what are your talents, what are your weaknesses, and then relate to the world as such, with this authentic, organic, like kind of a just, you know, also with our limitations. We're not, you know, we are just in our bodies, but this I find a very creative field to explore, and then to relate to others as a friend, not like as an enemy and competitor right away, right? So I know this sounds like very ideal world, but it's something that it's really, I feel that we should kind of explore that more than we do, you know.
No, I think that's words of wisdom. It reminds me of a principle that I know of, comes out of the Bhagavad Gita, and it talks about action and inaction, and inaction and inaction. So those things going together. And one of the ideas of that is that nothing is done and nothing is left undone. So how do you be and still do, and have the being in the doing, and have those things balanced? And I love the way, you know, you're relating to it from the feminine, natural, pagan, you know, concept, ideology, and, you know, the similar representation in the monotheistic Christian culture that has its roots in paganism as well, you know, with the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost, the Mother, you know, the Virgin Mary, all that stuff. So I think it's really important, it's really critical, and it's really interesting that and relevant, you know, that it is something that you're addressing at this time, you know, in our shared global culture. The theme, as you watch the movie now, how do you see its message?
Well, a little bit of the message I already addressed. It's that principle, but to expand on that message, for me, it's also, you know, I feel that this principle also calls for connectivity more, for you know, community, for expanding and relating to others, as opposed to where our culture seems to be going with the technology and you know, everything that I was saying before, towards some kind of isolation, towards us not just being isolated from one another, but to ourselves, to nature, to basically to everything, which then leads to all kinds of you know, emotional, mental issues, and it's very prevalent today, especially with social media and all that. I mean, we always talk about it, but we're not doing anything in order to, you know, make it better. So that's part of the message, and maybe also the way I created this film, specifically also some other projects, it's also on the visual level. I'm trying to layer and merge elements that are seemingly unrelatable. There are something that it's, you know, usually it's like a human figure, and then nature or urban environments are merging and melting, creating new worlds that are kind of, you know, I'm trying to think of what else can we think about that we aren't thinking yet, in order to make these you know, our lives more fulfilling. And lives are always more fulfilling when you have a community that you really relate to, that you are in the same frequency, and you know, because that seems to be diminishing, especially with the pandemic and all that, right? So with that visual style, I kind of create the world that I would like to live in, you know. Not that this world, it's very challenging and beautiful, but on the other side, it's also horrifying, you know.
Well, you know, expand on that, you know, from what I saw from the visuals, and thank you for that, because it's very helpful. I think, you know, what I saw in the visuals and what I connect to and resonate right now with in our discussion is that, you know, you have this figure, the feminine principle that you've, you know, highlighted as being, and that principle is taking in all the natural elements,
Right.
and they're moving through her. So that landscape is moving through her and passing in a three-dimensional way, passing in and
Correct.
out, and she's passing through it, and the fire, you know, is coming in and out in the sky, and all those natural elements. So, you know, it to me speaks of, as our shared humanity, in our shared humanity, the more we are able to take in and let out all of the natural elements of this humanity, the more holistic is our experience and our ability to connect with one another and ourselves. Is there anything there that's true?
I have nothing to add to that.
Okay, cool. But yeah, I thought that was a really, you know, beautiful visual.
Right. Yeah, that's the idea for sure.
Cool. I got it. And you know, the last question I'll play it forward is, since you made this film, since you worked on this project and now have evolved, you know, through it, how have you been changed by it?
So it was interesting that, you know, that this project didn't start with that, you know, with me knowing that I'm going to do a research on this goddess and all that, but then it was mainly like a confirmation for me that the material that I relate to best, or sources that I source from, are usually older than Western modernity, right? So this time I ended up with this pagan goddess, but then I was, what I'm doing right now, or what I've just done like in last few years, I'm realizing it's all, you know, going from, for example, I'm kind of obsessed a little bit about cave paintings, right? And I've always been fascinated. How is it possible that that these people, we know nothing, we think we know a little bit, but we may not, how they created something that is so alive, so it's almost, you can call them the beginning of filmmaking. They're moving, these animals, for example, how could they be so one with all these, that they created this thing that is better than Picasso, anyway. And then, through Greek or Roman myths or even medieval themes, they seem to interest me more, because they seem to have like the spiritual element, it's more present somehow, but not in a way not in a sentimental way, not in thinking, oh, good old times. I'm sure these times were worse than ours, or I don't know. But I try to take these, oftentimes these are archetypal or universal, whatever that means, but still themes, and then see and then apply them critically to our time, For example, the project that I'm going to jump on next, it's about Selmasis. It's about this water nymph that was in Greek mythology, was in love with Hermaphroditus, and they but he didn't care about her, and it's implied that she actually raped him, and which is a very unusual story in these Greek and these old myths, where women are usually the victims, right? So after this happens, they become one, and they become both. I mean, the Hermaphroditus, has both sexes, both genders.
So that's how it happened.
Yeah. So I'm thinking of using this theme in order to shine a light in our landscape, which where genders are assuming new roles and new relations, and it's all in flux. So that old myth is somehow resonates with me,
Okay. That's
I know it's a minefield. The people minefield.
No.
People told me,
that's
don't
totally
even get
cool.
into that.
No. That's totally groovy. But the question is, how have you changed?
How have I changed?
How have you changed as a person?
Right. Well, I think this the feminine principle, the connectedness of everything is basically more and more becoming this one thing that I want to communicate with, almost like I'm on a crusade. People, can't you see that you're not just one in your individuality and your thing, and that if you think like that, you're just going to be miserable, if I put it in really plain words. And my work, it's not, you see, that's what I figured out. I'm not satisfied with simple illustration of our problems, our emotions, my little issues, my little depression, whatever it is, but I kind of want to expand it to understand it, how the world around me is creating that, and then communicating to figure out a better way,
Well, what I hear you saying is something, that I love on many levels. And one of the levels is, hey, don't come to me with problems, come to me with solutions. So right. As artists, let's bring that, right. That's our job, is to dig into the spirit, the heart, and bring that into focus.
Yeah, absolutely. We tend to judge, criticize, whine a lot, and okay, that's fine, we need that, but at the same time, let's apply creativity to all that. Let's really, because that's fun. It's not like it's not, it's work, it's a lot of work, and there are parts of it that are complicated and painful even, but so fucking what, you know?
That's the power and the responsibility that we have.
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome. Nataša Prosenc Stearns, nominated by Christina Laboda Thank you so much. Filmmaker, visual artist, really appreciate you being on the show today and everything that you've shared with us.
Thank you. That was fun.
All right, cool. All right, till next time, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, where's that button? Where is that button?